I love my James Bond. I must have bought most of the books when I had my paper round as a sort of 10-year-old and spent the winnings in a second-hand bookshop. But even I have to admit that the Ian Fleming books of 60, 70 years ago nearly are at times a little racist, it's true. And yet I still don't like them now getting the same treatment as the Roald Dahl books. Sensitivity readers going through them, looking for trigger words that have to be changed, and the publisher issuing new editions without those offensive words and passages. Well, this Roald Dahl's publisher backed off, but the James Bond publisher so far has not. Joining me from London, as on every Monday, is commentator Esther Krakue. Esther, always great to see you. Look, I know some of those passages are racist, a bit racist, but should the books get a modern makeover to make James Bond have opinions he sure didn't have half a century ago?
Absolutely not. And, you know, Queen Consort Camilla made the point saying that, you know, artists and authors should remain true to their vision. I would like to point out that this rewrite of these books is very interesting because only certain parts of the offensive bits of the book have been taken out. So, for instance, slurs, you know, homophobic and sexist slurs haven't been taken out, but you know, racist slurs have. So clearly there's a hierarchy in the offended going on here. But I think the main point is to argue these books are written in a particular time frame and in a particular context. Instead of actually rewriting them, why not, you know, bring them up as topics of discussion and talk about them and you know, understand why they're written in that way and why the author at the time had that particular voice. And you know, it's really worrying because if you actually start censoring these books and start taking out bits and hiring sensitivity readers, which in and of itself is very odd, you know, you rob people of the opportunity to have open discussions about them. I mean, this is what happened with the Roald Dahl books, and the publishers were forced to backtrack and just say, actually, we will just put disclaimers there talking about the reason why this language might be offensive or the context around it, as opposed to removing it entirely. And even author Salman Rushdie just, you know, came out and said it's completely ridiculous that you're trying to censor authors for fear of causing offense. I mean, it's completely narcissistic to think that anyone should have the right to not be offended, especially when reading a book.
I wonder how you get a job as a sensitivity reader in the first place. That strikes me as really weird. But you're quite right about the, you know, it's like in workers' compensations claims, they have a hierarchy of a table of maims, which is worse, your arm ripped off of your leg, that kind of thing. And here, they leave in a phrase of where James Bond talks about the sweet tang of rape. I mean, seriously, they leave that in. But they take out something about you know, Africans being very nice, except when the men get too drunk or something like that. That's out. But the rape claim, which I think is even worse, that's still in. That's quite weird.
Yes, and the sensitivity writers also thought to keep in clearly very homophobic slurs, but apparently racist slurs were okay. I mean, it's a very odd the hierarchy of offensive slurs going on here. But I think the main point is to argue that
how do you and I not get these jobs? How come we're not sitting there? Why aren't we chosen to do these? I tell you what, I could create real mayhem. The collected works of Karl Marx, give them to me, you know. Oh, gee.
Yeah. I mean, anyway. I suppose the bigger argument is why is there such a thing as a sensitivity reader? How do you become a sensitivity reader?
I don't know. Do you have a meltdown in front of the publisher? You know, do they show you little cue cards of words, and if you melt, so that you get the job, and if you show a, you know, tough exterior, you don't? I don't get it. But also, I wonder where this goes. How far this goes? These are books that have been written, certainly not in your lifetime, but almost in mine. The Roald Dahl ones. Casanova. Do you go through his diaries where he talks basically about, well, essentially rape? Marquis de Sade, you take his books and remove all the passages to do with sadism. Dante's Inferno, it has Muhammad in the 8th circle of hell with his guts hanging out. Do we rewrite that because, you know, insensitivity? Where do you stop? Where is the chronological line?
And that's the argument here. You know, they're really, the logical conclusion is you don't stop, you just keep going. And look, rewriting books to remove insensitive parts is nothing new. This has always happened. But the argument has always been to stand up for free speech and to defend the vision of the author. And this is something that we constantly have to struggle against. I mean, Salman Rushdie still has a fatwa against him for his book that he wrote in the late 1990s. He's still under police protection in the US. So, you know, the argument is, why should anyone have the right to rewrite an author's book? Why should you have the right to rewrite the author's vision? And obviously you shouldn't. And if there are, you know, contentious bits in a book, that's a good thing, because that's a point of discussion. That's what makes these books come alive. But we're clearly in an era where there is clearly an economy for sensitivity readers, and only God knows what the job requirements are and how someone qualifies for that. But, you know, it's very disappointing.
I've got to do a column on that. I've got to try to find out how you qualify as a sensitivity reader. You've raised a wonderful point. Esther Krakue, thank you so much indeed for your time. You left me something to ponder now. Thank you for that. Honestly, the whole thing's quite weird. You know, when they keep doing it, everyone in literature will eventually be talking like 21st century man, the woke version. Really? That's a horrible thought.